Everybody, hello Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. All right, my friends. We are going to start with uh, a lengthier time control than I usually do. 15-minute bank plus 10 seconds as an increment per move. So a lot and quite a bit slower than the 10-minute per side per game time control. Here we go. Man, it's crazy. No, bug house, bug house. Oh, great game. My opponent played a great game. So, thumbs up. Good game. View this game in review. Okay, let's go back. So I'm going to review this game. Most moves I'll explain. So this is just standard opening moves. King's Pawn opening, and we come to this crux at the center here. I mean, dealt with in a number of ways. I chose to liquidate the pawns. My opponent obliged, and I think we're on our way. Sometimes this could turn into a no. This is a type of opening. That's it. Let's see what the. Okay, it looks like we're playing the Ponziani opening. Liquidate some pawns. I thought this check in here, mostly because I thought it was like one way to not concede the fact that I moved my bishop too often, and my opponent played knight c3. It's just good if he or they follow up with some kind of active plan to remove that bishop. Otherwise, this might be a premature check or not, or I want to. We would often see bishop d2. And then black might liquidate, because there's tons of things that can happen. My opponent chose to play knight c3, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. Now knight to f6 was probably an error on my part, as Torch 4 points out, to be met with d5. Down here e5, so with d5, the knight that just moved isn't in danger, but my knight on c6 is in some dire straits as to where to flee from the pawn check on d5. I think I ended up going back to b8, did I? Black is really struggling for space here, and so the minor piece trade on c3 was called for. And you know what to say here. Black survived a poorly played opening. I did. At this point, my opponent taking about a half minute per move, I started thinking, all right, well, you know what? We're in a really lousy position with almost no development. We black are way behind in space. We get to castle soon, but so does he, she, or they. Black is not doing well here, but we survived it somehow. So now I survived this opening. And what's more, I had the time to sort of collect my emotions and make a game out of it. I thought d6 was the way to start. D6, I can't just completely ignore the center. That's all there is right now. Most of it, white's ahead because each year they have better development, an extremely superior center, and king safety you know, from here till next game, even maybe one of the next games. So then I played D6. Have this, you know, this is this, you know, back against the ropes kind of left hook idea to try to get some coverage in the center of the board. King safety, that's fine. Black is doing anything to develop pieces and, you know, shake up a trade for trade kind of approach to clamping down on white, to shake off a white attempt for a couple trades and then attack. That's not what I want, and that's in keeping with the bishop takes h2. That is not a mess up. I consider that a sacrifice, even if it's considered a blunder by Torch 4. So I get 2 pawns for the bishop, and my queen is extremely dominant, just about in white's king's face. We're going to follow this up with some kind of placement of black's dark squared bishop, and try to get our knight over there in time to influence things. It's not a very accurate idea. It's not a very great idea, but black has to stir the pot. All right, so that's what I did. I got my result. Knight to h2. Not a very good move. In any event, maybe, but you know, because then the follow-up would be bishop g4. I have to be honest, I judged this move before I realized, again, the reason why it's actually a lousy move wasn't because of poor defense, like I had initially thought. The reason this is a lousy move is because white's bishop is hanging, so I pick up the extra piece, and from here, black is just going to put the screws to white. Free pawn on e5. So this king is air. This might as well be air here because it's a little bit worse than air. It's a bit of a target even. So what I say about my opponent's move knight to h2. I picked up a bishop on c3. We know that, but everything else about knight to h2, actually I'm looking at now makes sense because of bishop g4 as a follow-up, attacking the queen, and then maybe bringing out. Then white can bring out their own queen to f3, for instance. If the knight backpedals to f1, then that's kind of cool. Some central presence on e3. It's a good long-term move with the knight, except, I mean, obviously losing the bishop on c3 wasn't the way to go about it. Queen g5 check. Knight d7. I stand by queen h6. The other opportunity here for black would be probably queen f4. Queen f4 is not so bad. There's a lot of good moves here. Torch 4 has queen h6 and then queen h4. Queen f4 is not all that far down. So yeah, look, black's queen is sitting here on an open board, and there's targets, and there's target, and awesome diagonal, all sitting around white's king. So queen to h6, rook to c3, bishop goes to f6 with tempo. This is pretty darn good. Starting to look real good for black here. Hitting at the rook on c3, doubling rooks on the g file. Not too bad. It's not going to work because I have a lot of protection on g7. And not only that, I think I make the choice to move king to h8, and then there are even more possible protection. g7's just about the safest square on the board right now. It's the best idea. It's just sometimes the board doesn't favor an idea. Rook takes g7. Trying to get something going, but black has enough on g7. I think my opponent has fallen prey to the idea of maybe uh, attacking an over-defended square. Push my knight closer to the action. He's protected by the queen. No doubt that the bishop is not good protection here because of white's rook along the g file, but the queen's got it all under control here, and black's just gonna push through and make sensible attacks when necessary, and trade equal material pieces when possible. Here I look to trade queens. I look for this move. I said this would be a nice way to trade queens. It actually kind of pops out at me at this point in my chess playing career. But also, I look at this move, and then you check for, is there some kind of flaw? Can white muster some kind of crazy attack that probably isn't there right now? Would a move like Queen A1? What's the follow-up for black there? And I thought there's probably a pretty darn good follow-up in... I mean, not like Queen A1. Just the queen's gone. So I saw this. I saw the queen. White's queen does not have that many squares to which she can flee. So I played it. And I thought this is a strong, simplifying move by black. Not the queen to D2. A very strong, simplifying move here. White makes a sensible move, making more attackers, creating more attackers on e4, and forcing black to make a decision. That now there's at least the queen streaming down on the h7 square. Black must be careful. And I think just enough care I was full of. I was careful. I was careful enough. Because after queen to f5, which I agree with Torch is the best move here, or at least excellent, so among the very best, black can still simplify with tempo and thereby change the landscape of the game. The queen is now not quite as menacing on f3 as she was on f5. Rook e1 check. Then king flees. I think rook e1 is probably computer best move. The other move to consider here, folks, would be... Well, there's captures on a2. I don't like that. That's taking time out for a pawn that black does not need. So let's not worry too much about queen takes a2. Queen to e1 check also makes a lot of sense. This is pretty good. Same square, and we're just dealing with a slightly different placement of queen and rook. But anyway, I played rook to e1 check, king moves. Right? Here we are with this theme of trade queens, or find an attack, or find something, because I'm going to be looking to trade queens with a 7-point material advantage. And here it is. What I'm saying, simplification is one of the greatest ways to win a one game. You have to really look for simplification, though. And I found a good simplifying combination here with bishop to e5, skewering white's queen and king. And no matter that knight takes e5 is coming, bishop to so yeah, say it with the check. So bishop to e5, oh, there's no check. Okay. So no matter, knight takes e5, because then queen takes e5, and the queen is still gonna be off the board. Yes, she's gonna probably capture my queen in the process, but I'll be the one at the end of the day with an extra rook. and from here it's winning with an extra rook. But look, this is again. Why do I do this? Why am I so happy to simplify? Because at the end of the day, chess is a game. If you this poetry, I love it. It was a clear black night. Trust me, I love that kind of stuff. He's talking about brothers. Like bishops might be brothers before they're bishops. He's talking about a Rolex. They took my Rolex. You know, there was a clear black night. I think maybe he's talking about that the knight on B8, for instance, was lost, or some knight was clear and black. That's great. When it comes down to it, we have to remind ourselves that it's a game. Chess is a game. I played Queen E5. I love my mom more than anything. My entire life. I would not give her up for somebody else's. I would not give her up for the opportunity to, take out somebody else's mom. That's right. That's way outside of things. It's a game. You play to win. Not everybody. People have different goals when playing chess. I play to win. So, to the point that over poeticizing your games, my advice is don't. Once in a while, okay, if you're listening to a song that's clearly about chess, good. But here it's just a little bit more about the game, winning this game of chess. And there it is with a rook and 2 pawns more in material. It's going to make it easier. It's going to make it unstoppable for black to eventually checkmate. So my opponent resigns here. This board is lost for white and won for black. A fun game, a great game, but again, a game. All right. All right, my friends. That's it for this episode. Hey. And I don't approve of the next part, as it turns out. It's 81. Okay. Not so bad. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.